it's just morally wrong, aside from being harmful.
Hello, my name is Silje Jord, and thank you for your interesting lecture. My question is about the possible solutions for Israel and Palestine. I'm sorry if this is a question that calls for a whole new lecture, but in your talk you mentioned 3 different scenarios for Palestine. One is the two-state solution. Secondly, racist one-state solution where you, as you said, hand the keys over to Israel and we will have apartheid. And the third scenario is that Israel annexes large parts of the West Bank, in particular Area C, and we will be left with Palestinian bands or small enclaves, and we'll have the wall and all the settlements and all that. And given that all the facts on the ground suggest that this is what is already happening, and the settlements are there and they're not going to go away, and the wall is there and there's roadblocks and all that, wouldn't you agree that that suggests that the two-state solution is already dead? And if so, where does that leave us? And is it possible to envision one democratic state with equal rights for all citizens?
It's certainly possible to envision it. It's possible to envision all sorts of things. It's possible to envision peace on earth, say. But there's a lot of talk about this, you're right, in the solidarity movements and even among Palestinians. I think it's very misguided. It's a fine idea, but we have to make if you're interested in helping people, you have to make a distinction between what's sometimes called proposal and advocacy. You can propose all sorts of things, like peace on earth. I propose it, It becomes advocacy if you sketch out a path from here to there. Otherwise, it's just talk, Well, so personally, I think that something like a one-state settlement is a good idea. A binational state, that's in favor of that all my life since I was a child. It's got to be binational because there's 2 different societies, 2 different cultures. And incidentally, I don't think that's the end of the road either, because there's a better solution still, and that is a no-state solution. There's no particular reason to worship the imperial boundaries. I mean, if you've traveled there, you go to the Galilee, let's say, the line between Lebanon and Israel is ridiculous. I mean, it's just imposed by, in this case, French and British force. Why respect it? In fact, erosion of the boundaries and integration of the different cultures and societies, I think that's a good long-term goal, and I don't think that's utopian either. But you have to get to it somehow. Now, there's only one proposal that I've ever seen that actually counts as advocacy of either a binational state or a further solution, and that's in stages. I mean, there were periods in the last 80 years when you could advocate something more direct, pre-1948, or in fact between 67 and 75, before the Palestinian issue really became moved into the international agenda. Israel could at that time have been pressured to move towards some kind of federal arrangement which would allow autonomy for Palestinian areas in a kind of a federation with an Israeli-controlled region. In fact, even Israeli military intelligence was talking about things like this. I was writing about it too. The idea was total anathema at that time. It just aroused hysteria. And I think the reason is because it was realistic. Since that time, it's just not realistic. There's no support for it anywhere. And if you can't implement a short-term settlement which has the whole world supporting it, you're not going to be able to implement one which has nobody supporting it. So it's just, at the moment, just talk. However, you could, there's a way of thinking about it that is serious, I think, in stages. So suppose a two-state settlement is established. I think it becomes very clear for the people who live there that it doesn't make any sense. If you take Cisjordan, Jordan to the sea, you just can't draw a line through it that makes any sense at all. If it were established, I think it would pretty quickly erode. Commercial relations, cultural relations, a lot of things would happen, which in fact even happens under the occupation. Israelis go shopping in the West Bank until they were blocked and so on. Well, that way, boundaries can erode from within, and you can move towards closer integration. And I think the same thing could happen more broadly, eroding the imperial boundaries. But that's not something you can just snap your fingers out. The groundwork has to be laid, and you have to carry it out step by step. And if there's another form of advocacy, I've never seen it. Anything else that I know of is just talk. So yeah, it makes sense, but in stages. I don't think the two-state settlement is dead, incidentally. I mean, it's constantly claimed, but it's dead only if people give up. It has overwhelming support, and it's not unfeasible. I mean, it's now claimed that there'd be no way to get the settlers out of the West Bank. First of all, you don't have to get the settlers out of the West Bank. I mean, if Israel were compelled to announce that it's withdrawing the IDF, the Israeli army, from the West Bank, 95% of the settlers would leave tomorrow. They'd get into the lorries that are provided for them, and they'd move from their subsidized homes in the West Bank to their subsidized homes inside Israel. There'd be a couple of religious fanatics who want to cling on to every rock, so fine, they can stay in a Palestinian state. Nobody has to be moved. The same thing could have been done for the evacuation of Gaza. There was absolutely the only reason for the forced evacuation of Gaza was propaganda, so that you could then make it look, have pictures on the front pages of a little boy pleading with the soldiers not to knock down my home and so on. But that's great propaganda, which says never again, we're never going to do it again. So it was all carefully staged propaganda to justify settling the West Bank. And what they could have done, if they wanted to, Israel, on August 1st, 1975, could have announced the army's leaving. And as soon as the army leaves, whole lot of Jewish population leave with them. They wouldn't want to stay. That's okay. But that way you don't get any propaganda. It was a carefully staged trauma, and there were enough people who sort of understood it, some inside Israel, Bar Zimmerman for one, and others. And the same could be true of the West Bank. So I don't think there's anything. It's no harder to end than apartheid was.
Now we've reached the end of our question here, but any discussion in Tromsø about the Middle East will be incomplete without a comment from Mats Gilbert, who responds just a maximum of 10 seconds.
Thank you so much. My name is Noam Chomsky, and first of all, I want to thank you, Noam Chomsky, for taking the effort to travel half the way around the globe to enrich us with your insights, your professional academic knowledge, and to have this debate tonight. You are a role model as an academic, as an intellectual, and you've been that for so many years. And I know I don't speak only for myself when I say that you are also a huge source of inspiration and energy to us. My question to you is, what is your most important source of energy? Where do you get your inspiration to go on after all these years? Thank you.
I get it from people like you. Anybody who can do